Imagine being hated, not for what you've done, but for who people think you are. Now imagine those same people depending on you to survive. This is Mark's story, a journey through a treacherous jungle where hate, fear, and danger threatened to tear everyone apart. Yet through courage and forgiveness, he showed what it truly means to be human. Would you guide those who despised you? Keep that question in mind as we journey through this tale of survival, redemption, and hope. Mark lived in a quiet village on the edge of an untamed jungle. For most, the jungle was a place of mystery and danger. For Mark, it was an escape. He was an outcast, the subject of whispers and side eyes. "Don't go near him," they'd warn their children. "He's cursed." Some claimed Mark had betrayed the village years ago, though no one could agree on how or why. Others believed he was bad luck. Whatever the reason, the villagers avoided him, and Mark learned to live with it. He spent his days fishing by the river, repairing his small boat, and wandering the jungle trails. He had mapped the forest in his mind, its hidden paths, its predators, and its dangers. To Mark, the jungle wasn't a threat, it was a sanctuary. One night, a violent storm swept through the village. Trees crashed to the ground, rivers swelled, and the main road to the city was washed away. By morning, the village was in chaos. Their food stores were dwindling, and without access to the city, they'd run out of supplies in days. A meeting was called in the village square. The elder addressed the crowd. "The road is gone," she said gravely. "The only way to reach the city now is through the jungle." The crowd erupted in protest. "No one survives the jungle," one man shouted. "It's suicide," yelled another. The elder raised her hand, silencing them. "We have no choice. We need a guide." The crowd murmured, hesitant. Finally, someone said, "Mark knows the jungle better than anyone." Heads turned. Mark, who had been standing at the edge of the square, felt their eyes on him. "But can we trust him?" another voice asked. "Do we have a choice?" the elder countered. Mark stepped forward. The weight of their distrust was heavy, but he met their stares with quiet determination. "Will you guide us?" the elder asked. Mark looked at the desperate faces before him. These were the same people who had shunned him, who had whispered behind his back, and now they needed him. Mark nodded. "I'll guide you." At dawn, the group gathered at the jungle's edge. There were 10 villagers in total, including the elder. Some carried packs of food and water. Others carried tools and weapons. The jungle loomed before them, its dense canopy blocking out the sunlight. The air was thick with humidity, and the sounds of insects and distant animals filled the air. The group hesitated. One man muttered, "We're trusting our lives to a cursed man." Mark ignored him. He led them into the jungle, moving with the confidence of someone who knew the land. The villagers followed reluctantly, their distrust palpable. The first day was grueling. The paths were overgrown, forcing them to hack their way through with machetes. The heat was oppressive, and the buzzing of mosquitoes was relentless. By midday, tempers flared. "This is pointless," one woman snapped. "We're going to die out here." Mark paused and turned to face them. "The jungle is unforgiving," he said. "But if we work together, we'll make it through. Stay close and trust me." Some nodded reluctantly. Others remained silent. As night fell, the group set up camp in a clearing. They built a fire to keep predators away and took turns keeping watch. Mark sat apart from the others, sharpening a knife. The elder approached him. "You didn't have to help us," she said. "I know," Mark replied simply. The elder studied him for a moment. "Maybe we were wrong about you." Mark didn't respond. He wasn't helping them for gratitude or redemption. He was helping because it was the right thing to do. The second day brought new challenges. The group reached a swamp, its murky waters stretching as far as the eye could see. "We can't cross this," one man said. Mark examined the swamp, noting the tufts of grass and patches of firm ground. "Step only where I step," he instructed. He led the way, using a long stick to test the ground before each step. The villagers followed, their nerves frayed. Halfway across, one woman lost her footing and sank into the mud. She screamed, flailing as the swamp threatened to swallow her. Mark moved quickly, pulling her out and guiding her back to solid ground. The group watched in stunned silence. "Thank you," the woman whispered, her voice trembling. The journey continued. That afternoon they encountered a jaguar. The animal prowled in the distance, its golden eyes glinting in the shadows. The villagers froze in fear. "Stay calm," Mark whispered. "Don't run." He led them to a dense thicket, where they crouched silently until the jaguar moved on. The group began to see Mark differently. His calm demeanor and knowledge of the jungle were undeniable. Slowly, their hostility began to fade, but the jungle wasn't done testing them. On the third day, they came to a wide river. A rope bridge stretched across it, old and fraying. "We have to cross," Mark said, "one at a time." The first villager stepped onto the bridge. The ropes groaned under his weight, but he made it across. The second villager followed. Halfway across, the bridge snapped. The villager screamed as he clung to the ropes, dangling above the raging river. Mark sprang into action. He tied a rope around his waist and stepped onto the broken bridge. The villagers watched, their hearts in their throats, as Mark inched his way forward. When he reached the man, he secured the rope around him and signaled for the group to pull. Together, they hauled both men back to safety. The group was shaken, but alive. That night, they sat around the fire, reflecting on the day's events. One man spoke up. "I've hated you for as long as I can remember, Mark. But today, you saved my life. I was wrong about you." Mark nodded, his face unreadable. "Hate blinds us. If we're going to make it out of here, we need to leave it behind." On the fifth day, they emerged from the jungle, battered but alive. The city lay before them, its gates a symbol of safety and relief. The villagers, once divided by prejudice and fear, were now united by their shared ordeal. They looked at Mark with respect they had never shown before. When they returned to the village, word of their journey spread. People approached Mark to thank him, apologize, and ask for his forgiveness. Mark accepted their gratitude, but didn't linger. He returned to his quiet life by the river, content in the knowledge that he had done what was right. The villagers, however, wouldn't forget. They told the story of Mark, the man who had guided them through the jungle, not just through danger, but through their own hatred. And in time, the village changed. Fear gave way to understanding, and the walls that had divided them began to crumble. Could you forgive those who have wronged you? Could you guide those who doubted you? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And remember, sometimes the hardest journeys aren't about the path you take, they're about the hearts you change along the way.